see what you're trying to do.
Well, I suppose obviously one thing we want to do is try and make the house more energy efficient. Though Jill's not around, so she should probably be part of these discussions. And the other thing that I think is really important to us is trying to maintain as much of the character of the house as well. Because I mean that's why it's a bit like owning a classic car. That's why we bought the house, because we really love the character, and it would be a shame to throw the baby away with the bathwater. So this is the.
Are your neighbours? Did I stand in some water, or have you got a leak?
Oh, I think the cat's brought something in and Jill washed the carpet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just there. Sorry, I should have warned you about that. You should have kept your shoes on. Yeah, sorry, neighbours. Yes.
Are they on the same page?
No, they're an elderly couple. Peter and Sally are in their 80s, mid to late 80s. So they're actually in really good health, really good nick. But I mean, realistically, they're not really got any vested interest in doing anything. Very, very, very sort of into the house. They've been here since the 1960s, I think. So they love the place. So this is what we use as the dining room. We use as your office occasionally, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's not really the office. I'm just sitting here.
And you've got a wood burning stove here.
Yep. So we burn. This is what we're
One of those lovely things.
So basically, we burn stuff that comes from our relations' farm. So, so it's all wind blown. So I mean, although it's not, we're emitting carbon. It's stuff that would probably either rot down. That wall's northerly. I'm not quite sure. I think, and again, over various periods of time, walls, internal surfaces have been replaced as well. So some of it is lath and plaster in the house. Some of it is plasterboard. Some of it is just plaster. It's just we've just got a complete mismatch.
But no masonry.
I don't know. Is the honest answer. I mean, that if you tap that, I think that's probably plaster, isn't it? Is that the same on that side? Yeah.
It sounds like concrete blocks to me.
Yeah.
Thermalite blocks. All of that feels like really heavy duty earth or clunch or something. Have you got sources of chalk for blocks here?
Well, there's a clunch pit in the village, but whether we could actually get clunch from it or not.
No, but I'm just thinking that might be clunch as well.
Oh yeah, there's definitely clunch in the building. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
We've got clunch in the office wall and clunch in the end wall to the garage.
It sounds like something which is a bit flexible but not timber.
Yeah.
Because I'd always assumed they'd plastered it, which is. But I mean, you know much more about this than I do.
It's not excessively cold, so it suggests to me that it's something more natural.
Which is. It's quite nice to hear, actually.
It's colder lower down. And the temperature is related to the moisture.
Oh, okay.
Because water is the ultimate heat conductor. So if something's wet, it will feel colder than if it's dry.
Okay.
Give it a go.
That's interesting, isn't it?
We've got some heating on.
I've just put it on, yeah.
So this room and the upstairs bedroom have got exposed walls on it. Effectively, this is exposed walls on two sides. And obviously one's facing north. So.
Was it your choice to have single glazed windows?
They were here when we
moved in.
And you've never been tempted to?
Well, I've always thought that was sort of cherry on the top of the cake in some ways, compared to the heat loss that we get from the rest of the house. And we've sort of always liked the fact that there's small panes. And when we
I
first
think
moved
if we did replace them, we'd replace them with similar looking things, but just double or triple glazed units, I guess.
And we're also quite wedded to wood as a frame.
The Society for the Protection of Ancient Buildings, which has its headquarters near Liverpool Street in London.
Yeah.
Interestingly, they put in secondary glazing in their offices, and they put in secondary double glazing, and also they were prepared to go to the High Court to argue with the conservation officer, because their building was grade 1 listed,
Yeah.
that they didn't need listed building consent to do the work because it was completely reversible.
That's
Yeah.
true, isn't it? Yeah.
And you could actually do that here.
Well, in fact, we don't need. Well, and again, we don't need listing.
It's just
No,
a
we're not
conservation.
Listed,
And in
yeah.
fact, because there's one, the window on the landing is a metal crystal window, but our next door neighbours, they've got metal crystal windows throughout, haven't they? And I think they were like that here, but then one of our predecessors obviously replaced them with the wooden windows with the small panes because they look more cottage-like.
And these windows are incredibly frustrating. We've sort of.
To open the curtain, Bob, you don't have to do the
That's
curtain.
what I was going to do.
Oh, leaded lights.
But except they're not. They're
Imitation.
fake lead. So somebody's actually stuck lead, not us, but somebody's actually stuck lead on the outside to give the appearance. So it's
That's got
basically a pane
they've
of-
got secondary
it's a pane
glazing,
of
sort of
glass.
minor secondary glazing.
But these aren't leaded. That's just basically somebody stuck. Leading on.
That's not an evacuated.
No, that's just secondary.
But you know, again, if you put a double glazed panel on the inside face,
Yeah.
and had a big air gap, you'd get a lot more benefit from it,
Yeah.
rather than just a thin piece of glass.
I mean, we've done precious little, haven't we? into-
Yeah, yeah.
Do you open the windows much?
The downstairs one's not massively actually.
Upstairs, we tend to
upstairs-
sleep with the bedroom window
The
open.
bedroom window
winter,
usually
don't
open,
we?
and the one on the landing over the conservatory roof we tend to have open. But yeah, we tend to just have if it's a hot day, have the back door and stuff open. But it tends to be if it's a hot day, this room and the living room are quite cool, and they're cooler still if you keep the windows closed.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
obviously,
lovely
so-
house in summer.
um,
It actually stays quite
But this
cool.
window would be really easy to do
Yeah.
a double glazed secondary glazing, because you've got these mullions that you can work with, so you could have that as fixed, and they could just be a single piece of glass,
Yeah,
no glazing bars, and then these could be open so that you
Yeah.
can ventilate it.
Yeah. And in fact, in my previous house, what I did was, because the windows actually sealed reasonably well, was to actually put secondary double glazing inside
Okay.
the frame, so that effectively it was pretty well hidden. And when you open the window, and I didn't use glass, I used plastic material,
Mhm.
which I thought probably was better as an insulator, and actually was. But yeah, no.
But do you think making the windows double glazed or triple glazed that's going to have a reasonable impact in terms of the energy efficiency of the house?
Mm.
Yeah, because that Robert, I thought that was probably it would help, but not be the main thing in the context
Well, you know,
of the
do you know
house as a
how
whole.
you know what a U value is?
I know what it measures, but I don't know exactly what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically just a figure that tells you the heat loss from one side to the other.
Transmissibility, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of heat through.
And single glazing has a U value of 5.6
Yeah.
watts per meter squared per degree C. So degree C difference between inside and outside. So if it's 20 degrees difference between inside and outside,
Yeah.
you're losing 100 watts through every square meter.
Right.
And then you've got the air infiltration as well. But if you double glaze or triple glaze, you can get that down to 1
Wow.
as opposed to 5.
So that's a significant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a 5 times benefit. But I mean, if you've got, say, 10 square meters of glazing, you're going to improve from
Yeah.
50 to 10
Yeah.
watts per degree C. So that's quite a lot.
A lot, isn't it?
And in terms of the ventilation of the house more generally, other than if you've obviously got the window open, because we've got so many other places that the house ventilates, it's not going to seal the house too much so that the timber can't breathe and that sort of thing.
No.
Well, no, well, I don't think it'll make any difference at all.
Because when I was just thinking back to my parents lived in a 1930s house, and they quite early on, really, when it was probably in the 70s, they had double glazing fitted to, and then it sort of helped with the condensation, but in some places there was more, because it was suddenly the house became sort of hermetically sealed.
Yes.
And
It probably moved the condensation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's going to condense. The water's going to condense at the next coldest spot, isn't it?
Yeah. But here,
I don't think it would make a big difference.
because obviously we're obviously really concerned about harming the timber frame and the fabric of the building.
Although these timbers are just built into the walls, or have they got timbers in the front
I'm
wall?
pretty certain they're structural.
You think there's a? You think there's a?
Maybe this was.
Have you ever opened it up?
No,
No.
no.
Yeah, no.
no.
But we've got,
If you did
when
a
you
third-
go into our bedroom, which is above, not that wall, but this wall has vertical timbers.
Have you had access to a thermal imaging camera?
I was just
Got one,
gonna say
got one
that.
down there.
Yeah.
You can,
Well, if you do that,
yeah.
you'll
Yeah.
see where the timbers
You can
are.
see the stud-work in the walls, yeah. Yeah.
Did I showed you the picture of my house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That mine's very similar because you appear to get bridging because it's actually colder where the timbers are. Than
Especially if it's oak, because it's so dense.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can
How do you
see.
take your tea? Milk, sugar?
Milk, no sugar.
Okay.
Did you buy a thermal imaging camera?
Yeah, I built one of the what are they called? The probes. It wasn't primarily for the house. It also comes in really handy for electronics and things because you
Okay.
can look for something that's hot on a printed circuit board. Or,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was £200, I think. It
I'm
comes
just
in.
waiting for one from Octopus
Ah, right. Okay.
to do my after photos. I've done them before.
If you ever want to borrow one, I can always post it to you. And it just basically bolts onto your mobile phone and you install an app and there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Fleur?
No, it's I can't remember the name. Sorry, I'm still suffering from dementia. It's Seek. So it's
Well, I'll take you up on that.
yeah. No, you're very welcome to. So it's just
Not till after Christmas.
that's it. So it's just basically
Thank
a
you.
tiny little.
Yeah.
You've probably seen them. But
I'll put your tea there, Bob.
oh, that's it. It just pops into the. I mean, if you've got an iPhone, you'll probably need some sort of an adapter. Or I can probably furnish you with a spare.
I've
Android
got
phone.
I've got a cable that will take
Yeah,
it, I think.
But that was the first thing I noticed with it, that you could see all the timbers in the walls. So yeah, so would it help to just go
Walk around the house?
and sort of take a holistic. So the next thing of note probably is the porch. So as far as I'm aware, that's just solid brick. That was added at a later date sometimes, so that gets very cold.
This is amazing. Is that real or is that a?
Yeah, no, it's as far as we know. It's
So you think that continues along?
yeah.
Quite
Crikey.
possibly.
Yeah. I mean, as you
And
said,
these studs were cut off.
yeah,
to
I mean,
make the doorway.
it's been hacked around at various points.
But that's a massive piece of timber.
Yeah.
Is that chestnut?
I don't know. We'd always assumed it
Put the
was.
light on, Bob.
Oh yeah, we'd always assumed it was. oak.
is. No, I'd say it's chestnut.
Chestnut. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. No, you've got the figure of the oak there. But that's two bits. There's one. That's oak, but I think that's chestnut. Mix and match.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I never noticed that until you pointed
that
it
one's
out.
actually
Yeah,
just stuck in.
yeah, they're just laid on top of the other, aren't they?
Fake.
Yeah. I wonder if actually, I wonder if we've been living in the misapprehension that we were living in an old house that actually isn't as old as we think it is.
I think you've been had.
We've been done. Yeah.
In fact, it was built in 1960.
Yeah. And if we come in here, this is.
That's an unusual joint there. That one. Don't see that.
I mean, I'm assuming, again, nobody's actually told us, but when you look at these, whether they've come from a ship or something and been, or whether
Do you know that theory
It's a
has
myth,
been
is it?
debunked
Yeah, yeah.
several times?
Yeah.
Ships sank.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, isn't it? Yeah.
There goes a cat.
I think that's chestnut as well.
But if the theory, oh, there's the other cat,
Scared
that
off
this was a hall house with our neighbours, this is probably the area where the open hall would have been.
So these are new floors.
Potentially,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because our neighbours, the other side is their kitchen, and the idea is that was probably the end. The beams in their kitchen are much plainer than the ones in our dining room. So that the idea is that was probably where the animals were, and that's where the humans lived, and then this was the hall, and this correlates with where the blackened timbers are in the loft.
Yeah. And the ceiling is.
So yeah, so these might not be.
We're pretty certain
structural.
half and plaster, and that seems to just be held together with a lining paper, because as soon as you start to take the lining paper off, all the plaster starts falling off the ceiling.
And if it was a hall house, probably upstairs, the roof came down lower, and then they jacked it up.
Yeah,
Because they often did that.
because interestingly, there's in the upstairs. What you'll see is the ceilings are taller, but the top bit is sloping, and then that goes. And then if you went into the loft, there's obviously some beams where we think there was a third floor, but they're at head height, which suggests that the floor in the third floor was lower, and the upstairs rooms were therefore small, not as tall at some point in history. But
So this is the chimney that we were talking about. So basically, there's a passageway that goes down. This is ordered in. So there's a passage that goes down here beside the stairs. So my assumption is that the chimney is a block that's that long by that deep into the other room. But
This is not.
this is not
Very
original.
old at all.
No, it's not original brickwork, is it?
no, this was put in by
Looks
somebody
like
in the
19th century.
No,
No,
we think
more
it was
recent. It was
70s,
20th
we think,
century. It was actually, and there might have been because I think before the kitchen and the conservatory extensions were built, this apparently was the kitchen dining room, and that was the living room.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a small sort of Victorian style fireplace, sort of here-ish,
Right.
in what would have been the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then it was somebody that owned the house. I think it was probably the people who put the kitchen extension on in, we think, the 60s that built the fireplace. But our neighbours remember the fireplace being built. So yeah, that's completely fake.
Yeah. The one feature of the house that attracted me was
It's completely fake.
Yeah. So
Is that where you get the brick dust then?
no, I'll what I can do if you continue showing people around the house, I'll just take that panel.
Take the panel out.
so that you can have a look down there.
But it's not. We'll continue walking around. So I don't know whether you want to. Whether it gives you any more idea by looking in. I don't think it does tell you anything else by looking in the cupboard. It doesn't really say anything, does it?
Not really.
So this obviously is a modern extension, as is the kitchen. So I think from what I know, it's targeted. Well, obviously that, I don't know whether you want to go upstairs. Carry it round, okay. Okay. Yeah, carrot. Blimey.
You lead the way.
You go.
Tea and a camera.
I know, it's a bit scary.
No hand.
So, bathroom. So there is this beam goes all the way along, and that carries on into the bathroom, and I think through into next door's bathroom as well. I don't know.
Yes, so the wall, that's what I was saying, the wall plate is lower than the
Yes.
ceiling,
Yes.
and then they raised the wall up.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And this would have been the central truss for the hall.
which would have been?
This one.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
You can really see it there, can't you? The frame. Really easy.
So again, I mean, I don't know whether. I think there's again a bit of a mixture on this wall. I think there's some bits of plasterboard maybe, and other bits that are other sorts of plaster.
There's a chimney top here.
We believe that's the
That's the chimney.
Chimney, yeah. So Ralph was saying this beam across
Well, I'm just
here.
looking at that, and I have a feeling that that's possibly even a later addition. So that sits on there.
because I'm fairly confident the house will have been hacked around
Yeah.
over the centuries.
See, that there rings alarm bells to me.
That's
Not that it's a problem, no, but this is indicating to me that there was something here which that shouldn't be there. That should be
Something could sit on the
tied
other,
in,
yeah.
and that's
yeah.
why I wonder if this is actually later. and the
Yeah.
roof. The roof was open, and then this was added in when they put the floors in.
And maybe when they put the chimney breast in,
Could be.
when they
Well,
stopped.
I suspect it was before that.
And also this here is, I mean, was this coming out this way? Because again, there's a step on there, isn't there?
Yes, but there's no joint
No.
for it to sit on. But that suggests there was a window there, so that probably was the external wall.
And we certainly had a window in the attic,
Okay.
looking
At that end, yeah.
One of the challenges when it comes to loft insulation is
Oh,
this.
usual problem.
I think this is all recent plasterboard in the ceilings in both bedrooms.
Very thin.
In fact, in the other bedroom, this one's not too bad, the ceiling, but the plasterboard was only held on with joists that go across that were held in with 1 or 2 2-inch nails. And I've been insulating that loft space for ages, but when I came to insulate it, we had to build a gantry in order to actually cross the void because we don't walk on the joists.
Sorry, it's a bit like a fridge in this room.
Yeah. This is the one that there's no loft insulation above us here. That's
How do you people live in these cold houses?
you just get used to it.
We tend not to have the radiator on in this room unless we've got guests, because it's just the guest bedroom. So
Actually,
yeah.
what I will do is I'll
Show
put
them
it
the
on.
You've got a sensible tank at least.
We brought all that inside. We had a flood when we got 2018. It used to be up in the loft, the central heating part of it.
Actually, we've had that tank since before then. We had that when we got the bathroom done in 2013,
right, yeah.
but there was still a header tank. And
So you're now on a pressurised system.
well, it was the pressurised system was put in, but in fact, no, the header tank was taken out in 2013. But there was one piece of pipe still up in the loft, and it was capped. It was the one that used to go to the header tank, I think. And the cap blew during the freeze in 2018, and we got quite badly flooded. So we took it out then.
Some serious structures up here.
You might want to come down so that, or go up so that Ralph can actually
Mind your
pitch
head
it.
because there are nails sticking out of the timbers.
Yeah, the loft.
Yeah.
Robert always says, if I'd looked in the loft before we bought the house, I'm not sure we'd have bought it. Because the survey said
Yeah.
messy but adequate. Yeah, that was it.
That was the wording.
Yeah,
Was
but
it?
you could have a look in a sec. It's yeah, messy is a bit of an understatement.
You can always see what's going on in cupboards and these sort of spaces, can't you?
Yeah.
So the wall next to you, at some point, was
Oh wow, look at that.
part of a room because there's actually wallpaper on the inside. So
That's the real
Smell the
makeup of the house. You can see up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think ours is a bit boring by comparison because we had this.
Oh, with having the fire, yeah, it's all
it's just
changed, yeah,
completely modern.
yeah.
It's completely as you'd expect in
Yeah.
a modern house.
Yeah.
So therefore,
it is with an open fire.
a little bit unremarkable.
You can have a look.
Can I have a look?
Very quickly. Yeah.
Yes. I was saying to Chris, Robert, I always said the first time you looked in the loft after we completed and moved in, because we obviously, you don't look in the loft when you look around a house when you're buying it, or we only saw the house once. No, you should, yeah. And but we had the structural survey, messy but adequate. Robert put his head in the loft and was like, "Oh my god, I'm not sure we should have bought this house."
It's standing there, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Inside this, so this attic space was actually part of another room.
So you think there was a third? So this ceilings were potentially
I have
lower.
no
and-
idea.
Yeah. So,
It's one of those buildings which is impossible to really understand.
yeah.
It's been mucked about with
So
so
much. Mm.
And that's probably because it's a relatively poor building that people didn't value it much, and
Yeah.
so they just hacked it to bits
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
did what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And I quite like that.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody in a fancy house would leave it
Yeah.
intact because it
Yeah.
would frighten them too much.
Yeah.
And actually, the timbers are they're good, but they're not exceptional. So
No,
it's not that early because the better timbers were all 13, 14, 1500s, and they sort of ran out of decent wood after that because everything had been cut down.
Yeah. So you don't think it was as early as the 1500s?
I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely to have been workers' cottages, and they just did what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's different from what the local historians seem to think.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert, but
Well, I mean, the reality is nobody knows.
No, absolutely.
no.
So what were you saying, Ralph? So I missed it. Obviously, I was up in the loft when.
Well, there's just so many different things happening
Yeah.
in the building that you can't really understand.
You can't read it.
What's
Yeah,
gone on.
Yeah.
And you also don't know how much of it's original.
No.
No.
But
Yeah.
that end is pretty substantial and suggests it was something of note. The more I look at that, the more I think that there was a central partition in this building, because that does actually look like it should be there.
Yeah, and again, the where did we go through? Yes, because that's what you can see. That's the partition with wallpaper on the inside, which obviously.
Right. But the more pressing question is, what can you do
Yeah.
to improve it?
We can always knock it down and start again.
I don't know whether for completeness you want to see the what we call the outbuilding. Oh, yes, I've forgotten you've got the hole.
Oh yeah, that's what I get as well.
Yeah, so periodically I rake it all out and clear it all out and.
That's interesting.
Just needs a bit of fresh air.
Ventilation, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you opened it up more often.
Well, what I've thought about doing, which again, it's great thinking about it, but not actually doing it, was actually putting a couple of vents
Yeah.
in this panel.
We did that with our where we had the panelling.
Mm-hmm.
We had exactly this problem behind, and he just put it was that diameter,
Yeah.
top and bottom.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
in fact, we
kind
could
of dotted around every 6 foot or so.
put
Just
something on
those
the other
circular
side.
metal
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Driller
That's the job
core
for me.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
With
Yeah.
the same problem in our village hall with a big void under the floor, and the floor was getting damp, so we just core drilled out some things, put in a £4.50 metal vent,
It's cheap, yeah.
Yeah.
sorted the problem out.
Yeah, that's what we do as well.
Fresh air.
That's can't beat it.
Did you want to see the other building?
We would like you to see the other building if you would like to see it. Did you put your shoes on?
I'll get my jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's lovely if you've taken it off, but it's not going to ruin the car.
Maybe it's easy to just look downstairs, just look at the garage first.
Yeah. So this, obviously, this connecting bit that we had built in 2000 when we. So this is all sort of modern. So this is the garage space. So as you can see, we've got brick over there in that wall. That timber, I assume, goes all the way around or something similar to it, and then we've got this lattice structure on top of it. There's definitely that corner's definitely got clunching.
That's the bit from the outside that they took a little bit of render on when somebody slammed their car into the side of the house.
And I don't know what's going on here, and then obviously this is brick, but that then extends out into that passageway as well. It's sort of an interesting structure. Obviously that's brick.
When we bought the house, this was obviously open, and then it was also open at that end where really just the normal blockwork is. So, and the whole of the downstairs, so where the utility room and shower room are, were all looked like the garage still does.
So above us we've got, to comply with fire rigs, I think they put 2 layers of plasterboard in, and then above that all the joists have got fiberglass insulation put in them as well. So the room above, I think, is probably the most energy efficient one in the house. Sorry, Chris. Oh, careful. They're trying to find sanctuary. Oh, yes, please. It's all right, Em. So this originally had planning permission for 2 bedrooms, and we thought we don't need 2 bedrooms. We'd got this vision of having one big, lovely room that we could just.
Yeah. Which is now become an aircraft hangar.
So that beam at the end there is definitely fake. That originally was a tie beam that went across this where I'm standing now, and the previous owner had actually put that dormer window in.
So they cut that out and put it there?
No, because this was just a shell, but they cut the tie beam, which our structural engineer, I was telling Chris in the car coming down here, structural engineer, the structural survey had done, didn't mention it at all.
No, well, he said, actually, he didn't mention the time. He said there's long-standing bowing in the front of the wall, but nothing to worry about. And when the building inspector came around, he went, I think you better get that sorted pretty quickly.
Yeah, so obviously we didn't want to reinstate the tie beam because 1, the window was there, and 2, it was at this sort of height. So it was a much more complicated solution to sort of tie the roof in. But we thought, well, the beam's really nice, so we just put it in the water. But it's just decorative, completely decorative now.
So then we've got pantiles on the roof, and then there's, I mean, we could put some more insulation in the loft space, but it's pretty well insulated.
And this is, so that the sort of lattice walls are originally just to the window frame. So this is internal stud work, and it's
which is all insulated
in here, which is what we had done in '99 when we converted it.
So you've basically done this?
Yeah, I don't think anything needs doing to this part of the.
But it's all single glazed again.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's something to just to take away there straight away, isn't it? To get it double. You reckon secondary double glazing is as good as?
Well, I would, because I think that's got relatively little thermal performance. You might as well forget about it.
Yeah, it stops drafts. The other thing is this area down here. Obviously, this wall is just there's no cavity. It's single skin. So we've then got the shower room that you've been in, and then there's an office around the
Beyond
corner,
the shower.
Yeah.
beyond the shower, and that part of the wall in there is definitely clunch at the end.
Right. This is one of those challenges where you think, I'm not quite sure where you would start.
And finally, just to round it off, the kitchen was added in the 60s.
Yeah.
So this is, there's a brick plinth which you can see, in fact,
Well,
where Chris is
the
standing,
sole plate, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
which goes all the way around, and then there's timber stud work built on top of that. But again, it's got minimal insulation. I mean, you can see how thin the walls are, and there is fiberglass in them, but and concrete render on the outside. So that's us.
Well, I mean, if your neighbours were to sell up, that would. I still think it would be worth doing a comprehensive plan for the whole terrace.
Yeah.
And showing them what's possible, because once you've done it for yours, it would be relevant to them. And then if it changes ownership, they could do it. But the real question is, do you want to make it energy efficient, or?
I think I do, but I think you're more concerned about
I would,
disruption. And
yeah, I mean, I would like it to be more energy efficient from both an environmental and cost perspective, but equally I want to preserve the character inside. That was the whole point of moving here. And I know you would consider moving, but I've always said I'm going out of this house in a box. So,
Let me just have a quick look outside.
but yeah, I mean, I don't like disruption. I don't cope well with disruption. And,
I'm not sure how well this is working, but we'll find out. Oh, he's come back in again.
No, I mean, I think there's plenty of scope to do it from outside,
That would
which
be-
is the obvious solution. Then you don't have to.
There's no change to the internal.
It's quite a thick wall.
yeah,
form
but
of construction.
it's probably just the concrete render and the plaster on the inside,
Yeah,
just a gap.
nothing.
Well, but the window frames will be hopefully in timber. They're not.
Yeah,
gonna be in
yeah.
concrete in the render on the
No,
outside.
there will be some
Yeah,
timber. It's just there's not a lot of insulation, I suspect,
Oh, yeah,
in there.
yeah, no.
That's
It's
what
not
I was
unlike
reading.
yours.
No, I think it's
I was thinking
Similar.
it's the same as we were
Yeah.
going around. Probably
In fact, I
described.
think we're finding a pattern
Yeah.
throughout the whole area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take the render off.
Yeah.
And redo it.
But take the render off, put insulation, pack the timber framing with insulation.
Well,
So
what I
it's-
suggested to Chris was that he takes the render off
Yeah.
and makes the wall much thicker.
Yeah.
Moves the windows further out, and in his case does it with hemp and lime cast in. And here you've got enough of a projection on the roof that you could do that.
Yeah.
And if you did it all the way along the terrace, then at least it would look unified.
Trying to do it all the way along.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, the guy across the road, who unfortunately has passed on, but his house, they actually took all the outside rendering off and put lamb's wool insulation.
It was just in the end wall, though,
Just in
wasn't
the
it?
end wall, yeah.
Just in the end
Just in the
wall.
north wall.
Good.
And he said that made an enormous difference.
Well, it
to
will
the-
do,
to the-
yes.
I mean, it occurred to me that if we were to do that more radical solution, I mean, presumably the wall that's the most sensible to do it on, if you were just going to do it in one wall, is this one, because it's two reasons. One, it's the north facing one, whereas this one is west facing, gets a lot of sunshine actually on the front of the house, but also it's the one that doesn't have any impact in terms of the look of the, because it's just ours.
Right. But
Whereas as soon as we do something here, it impacts on our neighbours and the look, as you say, of the whole run.
But I take the view that it's not going to make the house look worse than it looks already. No, I'm not suggesting it looks bad, but actually we're in a way replacing light for light, but it's
You
just
are.
going to stick out a bit further.
Yeah, but I think if our
Are you in
if
a conservation area?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
I
you
think
need
if-
planning
Yeah,
permission.
yeah.
and I think if the front of ours stuck out more than Peter and Sally's, I don't think that would look nice.
No,
I
but
think if the
what I'm
rendering was
saying
a
is
slightly different.
if you get them to agree that
Agree,
when they move on,
Yeah.
the next person is prepared to do that work,
Yeah.
because it's only a narrow frontage.
Yes, it
there,
is.
and the one at the end could do the same.
Yeah, well, it's all one
It's all
house.
Oh, it's all one
Yeah,
house.
they-
Yeah,
they're not
bizarrely,
built,
the
yeah.
bit that looks the oldest at the very end is the newest extension.
Or so we're told.
Right.
Well, so- yeah. But that used to be a separate cottage, but it now belongs to next door.
Yeah.
I mean, they won't do anything. They're 87 and 80. They're not gonna. So it's whoever moves in after they
Yeah, but I mean,
move on.
chances are that it will change hands in the next.
Yeah, not
5 to
50,
10
50,
years.
yes,
Quite
yeah.
possibly, yes. Yeah.
And if there's an overarching approach
Yeah.
that's ready made,
Yeah. But if we wanted to do something in the meantime,
Well, I think from what Ralph said first,
what I'm suggesting is what you do is part of a strategic
it's a plan.
approach,
Yeah.
and you do your bit, and that gets done as and when, but the intention would be that it becomes unified.
yeah.
So you might have to live with something that's half finished.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which could be.
But as
pretty
you
shocking,
say,
yeah.
it might be worth tackling that wall
Yeah.
and maybe the back
Yeah.
in the interim to get a feel for how it works.
And to feel for what you find.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
because we're no telling what
you
some
want
of
to
this
build
is.
in some flexibility
Yeah.
into your thinking so that
Yeah.
when you take the render off, if you find something that needs a different approach, then you've got that ready.
I mean, that's obviously the biggest piece of wall, because by the time you factor in all the windows and everything along the frontage here, and it's fairly low, and at the back you've got the kitchen extension, you've got the conservatory. There's not a lot of.
No.
So that's the biggest stretch of wall, and it's the north facing, and it's the one that doesn't have an impact on the look of the street, because it's just
Yeah.
a detached wall effectively. So I think
How
you
far
don't- you-
does the roof project?
Yeah, it actually overhangs.
Quite a long way.
Quite a long way.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that's easy.
Yeah, yeah. Not only does the roof, the eaves overhang, but also
The verge overhangs.
the whole wall is actually leaning outwards.
it's leaning out.
Yes.
So we've ended up tying all that back to the roof as well to try and stop it from continuing to lean outwards.
It's the same again.
Yeah, we've all got those problems.
So I mean, in terms of, double glazing, secondary double glazing seems a no-brainer.
Well, I think yes, and certainly when you look at all the advice, that is the easiest
Yeah.
win.
Yeah.
It's where cold comes into the door. Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. Yeah,
That's the easiest.
Yeah, that was exactly what. I know, obviously, there was a
That's a
protocol
cold
there.
space.
Yeah.
Or even just a really heavy curtain.
Yeah.
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 I think working on something like that's not really worth it.
But, and also you're not going to
if
get.
you were going to do that.
Well, I think
Yeah.
separate it from the house.
Yeah.
Wind lobby.
Yeah, which is a really good idea. And in fact, the other problem with this place is that it is prone to it's flooded once in 2006, because the road is actually higher than the house. We had really heavy flash floods, and the water
Drains
just came.
didn't cope, and the road flooded, and it just flooded
Okay.
into
So
the
we had
house.
about 3 inches of water on the floor in here.
In here?
Yeah. Fortunately, all our furniture's hardwood, so it did absolutely no damage whatsoever.
Gosh. Why do you think the road is higher than the house?
Because of the age of the house, I think.
It's just
I think just
rubbish.
gradually the road, when it's been resurfaced, they've never sort of dug it out. They just
No, it just
built on
built
top,
up
on
and
top,
on
on
and
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the tide mark,
The
you could see
guys
on-
opposite
yeah.
was flooded as well,
Yeah.
because they're also below road height.
Where do you start?
But I mean, that's another problem. But I
Just
suppose
get
it-
them to dig the road
No,
out.
no, yes, yeah. Well, next door actually put pumps. They've got
Yeah,
a
the ones they
drainage
did, the
system under
sheep
the
wall,
floor.
the half timbered
Yeah.
house over there.
Drainage system under the floor, sump, a pump, and also they built the wall up so that effectively there's a sill, so that the water has to come even higher before it comes into the roof of the house.
But they've
all the
actually got
sockets are
their
above
gate
that
that's
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they had to they've got lovely hardwood floors downstairs. They had to really carefully take all of those up in order to put this tanking system underneath the floors.
I suppose that's another question actually in terms of underfloor insulation. I mean, we know in there that we've got, I think it's about 3-inch polystyrene foam underneath the floors when they put the floors in. But here, this is somebody's rendered it do it self-rendering.
It's
before we-
screed, isn't it? Really
sorry,
poor
before
quality screed.
we
Yeah.
came here, so we'd no idea what's under there. And there, it's still got quarry tiles from when it was a kitchen. And my assumption is that the quarry tiles may even be
Just on
straight in
earth.
the earth without any.
Or on a thin
Yeah.
screed.
Yeah.
Well, I still think the best material for floors is this foam glass, you know, the really
Yeah, that
lightweight
you've used. Yeah.
black stuff. Because you can take this out really easily.
Yeah.
A couple of jackhammers in here and you'll have to have it out.
I don't think we even knew that from when it flooded. I had to go around and actually put
Patch it up,
self-leveling
'cause
stuff in because it was
it's-
it's so poor quality. It's just sand basically.
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Because actually, if you work on the principle that everything should be undoable,
Yeah.
Then it is.
It is. Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
all this heavy-duty construction that they use now,
Yeah.
which doesn't stop a building from moving, it just makes it impossible to demolish.
Yeah. And in fact, a similar thing. A friend of mine was under one of the Green Deals had been offered loft insulation.
Yeah.
And they were going to put spray foam in.
Oh God!
And she was like, "Oh, this is fantastic." And I said, "Well," she said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I don't know anything about it. Let me just do a bit of research." And of course, you know exactly what I uncovered.
Massive condensation
Yeah,
issues.
yeah,
water
and
running.
problems with getting mortgages because they don't know
Yeah.
what spray foam is or what it's hiding.
Yeah.
Or so I then went back to with a load of newspaper articles. I've gone back to the people that are going to do it. They say there's absolutely nothing to worry about. It's
Of course.
open spray foam, and I sort of said, well, yeah, but they would say that, wouldn't they? And it's like,
Put it in writing.
yeah, well, and they'll guarantee it. And I said, well, the guarantee's only as good as long as the company lasts for.
Exactly.
From
tomorrow.
Yeah, and so she went back and did a bit more research and just went, no, you're right, I'm not doing it. It's one of those things you think, oh, I hope I've given her the right advice, but it was just like,
Yeah.
if I was doing it, well, I wouldn't do it because it's
Right.
right. Anyway, thank you so much for your
No, really, really brilliant.
your
Thank
insight.
you.
Pleasure.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a difficult challenge.
Well, except it isn't, is it really?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you want to do it yourself, the only thing
Yeah.
you'll lose is the VAT exemption.
Yeah.
Which is a real bugger. And I think we need to keep lobbying. I mean, I've written to various people, but you don't get any response.
It's knowing who to write to actually get an impact, isn't it? That's the.
Well, I think it was Tom's wife or partner who said that the Treasury is only interested in job creation.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be Anne. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on a loser.
Yeah.
Right, I'll get you back then.
Yes, you
Well,
need
thank you
to.
so much.
You've got a
Well,
lot of
not only
journey,
for this, but it's also fascinating to have a chat as well. So
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed talking to both of you.
I just wish we could get some momentum behind
Mm.
it.
Yeah, your frustration is exactly the
so
same as
that
mine.
people realise it's not that difficult.
Yeah.
It's just common sense, actually.
But I think I mean, certainly it's true of me. You end up with a situation where you're almost scared to, doing nothing isn't really an option, but doing something is equally scary because you're afraid you'll do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of that you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, really.
Yeah.
And it's like I was saying to you when those guys were paying the bill in the pub, it's knowing who to go to know you're going to get sensible advice and to be able to do the work correctly so that they're not going to damage the fabric of your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this guy in Sudbury is really good. If you can get him to do it.
Well, is that because he's in demand, or?
Well, yeah, anybody who's decent is busy.
But then it's worth waiting for somebody
Yes.
that actually is.
Yes, and the other question is whether he's prepared to come this far.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a hike. But he might know somebody
More
who
local.
is more
Yeah.
local.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for Cambridge Carbon Footprint is, one of the biggest things that it could do is information and advice.
Sure.
Better than it's
Well,
doing.
they've
isn't it?
put together a database now, haven't they?
They have, but the trouble is, it's all a bit sort of tucked away and not really.
I'm not trying to use it in
Yeah.
the sense of look. Oh,
Well,
we'll try it and
it's
I'll
basically
get
a
home
list,
about
isn't it?
them,
Yeah.
Hempcrete
Great
suppliers.
stuff.
and
And
so
it's almost.
find
I mean, when I worked for Age UK, the key service was information and advice, because that was where people found out what other services they needed, be they within the organisation or outside. So.
yeah.
To be able to signpost people in the right direction, or if they need a bit of hand holding, to actually do some hand holding as well. I think that's a good way of actually getting some
And that's
stuff
where a
done.
computer is really valuable.
Yeah.
Instead of saying we're experiencing a high volume of calls, get your database working so that people can actually find out what they want to know.
And have somebody available on the other end of the phone as well, so that for those that can't help themselves or need a little bit of encouragement, or
Yeah.
there's a human to talk to.
Or,
rather than-
you know, I mean, I'm, I think, a reasonably intelligent person, but
Oh, I don't know about that.
I would read up on this stuff, but I wouldn't be confident in my own opinion, even if
No,
I'd read
yeah.
it.
No, I fully appreciate that, and I think
Yeah.
unless you've worked in the field for a long time, you can't see the benefits of the different approaches.
Yeah.
And it is quite daunting.
Yeah.
There's so much, and there's so many scare stories about things that have gone wrong.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I mean, it petrifies me the fact that somebody start impervious concrete rendering on the outside of this
Yeah.
place, and Peter next door thinks along similar lines. He was going, well, I'm leaving well alone because it's got a gale blowing through it, but at least I know it's ventilated, and it's like,
That's true.